John Ridley, welcome to Stockholm. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
And also congratulations on the two movies that you're here for. They both will be screening. 12 Years a Slave and also the Jimi Hendrix biopic. Two amazing movies.
Thank you.
Now, working both as a writer and director, how does the process differ when you write the screenplay and direct a movie as opposed to when you only write a screenplay for a movie?
Well, the nice thing when you're just writing the screenplay for a film, you know there comes a point where you get to turn it over and you kind of relax. It's like taking the baby and giving it to a babysitter, a family member that you care about very much. You know the film is going to be in the right hands, but you can step back a little bit. There's a cool remove. Decisions that are going to be made across the board about casting, about production, execution, things like that. You can sit back and watch those choices be made. Sometimes that's great because you have nothing but faith and trust in the individuals who are making those choices. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult because as you watch those choices being made, you realize there are things that you would do a little bit differently. That's where being a writer-director is different because there is no handoff. You're making those choices every step of the way. It consumes you, it fills every aspect of your life. There is no break, there is no parting from it. But the difference is the things that you make are much more bespoke. They're your choices, and it becomes the film that you want it to be. And there's an ownership of that for beginning, middle, and end, from the inception of it to the execution and to the way you put it into the marketplace. It's a total experience.
And because when it comes to the Jimi Hendrix biopic, All Is By My Side, that's where you both directed and wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
And how is it, because you've directed television, and how is it adapting to directing a feature?
Well, with television, the good thing is no matter what happens the week before, you have an opportunity to build on that. You can learn, you can grow, you can change. Mistakes you made, you can erase, and the things that you've done well, you can build upon. When you're doing a film, you essentially got one shot at it. And all of the decisions you have to make, they need to be the right decision. Now, of course, every decision isn't the right decision, but different from television where you can look at what you did, literally, truly, step back, look at the episode you put together and say, we did that, it was wonderful, we want to grow here a little bit, we want to add in the next week, that we did, that wasn't so great. You can modify, you can change, you can grow, and that's why I think television, you look at it, it's so good week in and week out because you're working with a team of people and you can grow. With a film, you got to pick that right team from the beginning. The decisions you make, all the things that you do moving forward have to be of a single mind and a single mindset. That's why the director is so important in film, and in television, it's more of a writer's medium.
And going back to the two characters, you have Solomon Northups in a 12 Years a Slave, and then you have Jimi Hendrix. And when you were doing research about these two, I mean, dynamic, profound characters, was there any element of surprise or astonishment when that arose? Probably
more with Jimi Hendrix because he's someone that is so iconographic right now. I mean, unfortunately with Solomon, he's a story that's so important in America in particular. I think he's a story that's going to resonate around the world. It's a gentleman whose his desire is the right of self-determination and to be reunited with his family. I mean, those things are universal. They're not just American stories. But as a particularly American story, I didn't know it. Most Americans didn't know it. So surprise was just every time you turn the page and reading his memoir, because there were pieces of history, our history, American history, shared history that I wasn't aware of. With Jimi Hendrix, it's different because his iconography is writ so large, and people know him by his guitar and that he lit it on fire and his hair, but beyond that, most people don't know that much about him as a person. So I always compare him in a way to like Che Guevara. You have kids who run around wearing Che t-shirts, but they don't know the first thing about him, his politics, who he was, whether he was a good person or a bad person. They just know he was cool. And the same thing with Jimi Hendrix. A lot of people, they know, they believe he's cool, they love his music, but they don't know much about him beyond his hits or the clothes that he wore, his style, the way he looked. So I wanted to surprise people with that story, and I think it was necessary because for a film to be relevant, it's really got to be informative. And so with All Is By My Side, the story of Jimi Hendrix, if I was just telling people everything they already knew about him, what's the point? You know, why not go and get a greatest hits package, just play those songs? For you as an audience member to be surprised, to be informed, to come away with something new, that film has got to be informative. So it was surprising to me every step of the way, and I wanted to be surprising for the audience every step of the way.
And I'm also thinking on a personal level, because I mean, both these characters have, you know, very touching, emotional, compelling stories. And how did making these movies, because it's also about colored people fighting for their rights, how did they actually affect you or have a resonance with you on a personal level?
Well, for me, on a personal level, in two different regards, they had a great resonance. First of all, with Solomon Northup, an amazing regard, because for me to be in a place where I can sit and write about that individual, you have to remember that in America, in the Deep South, at that time, this was 160 years ago, it was against the law for people of color to be able to read and write. That was a death sentence. And there was no trial required to execute someone for that. So in 160 years' time, for me to be in a place where I could write this story, where I could tell this story, where I could be one of the producers on this film, you look at how far America has come. You know, we are not a perfect nation, we still have problems, but in that space of time, going from a place where it was illegal for a person of color to read or write, to a time when our president is biracial, at least a person of color, self-identifying, that is huge. With Jimi Hendrix, it's different because, again, that was somebody, to me, just as a fan growing up, I always thought he was amazing, and so many people did, but so many people didn't really know his story. And as a fan, be able to dig more deeply into his narrative, who he was, where he came from, why he was the way he was, the time that he spent in London. Most people don't know that the most formative year of his life was spent in London. Who are those relationships that were most important to him? And to be able to dig down and present that to other fans, that's huge. And for me, that was a very, very special moment. A lot of people have tried to tell Jimi's story, and for different reasons, very talented individuals have not been able to crack that nut, so to speak. So for me to find a way to be that individual, it was just very humbling to be able to tell the story of someone that I find to be one of the most fascinating, unique, interesting, singular artists in the history, not just of music, but in artistry in any way, shape, or form. To be able to tell that story was very special for me.
Wow, it sounds so inspirational. And I'm also thinking, because I mean, as a very dynamic and talented filmmaker, when you choose your projects, because now it's both films are sort of very character related with a specific theme, is that something you want to continue? I mean, maybe more on a portray people or with iconic status?
That's a very good question. I have to say, you know, coming out of two films that were in production at the same time, they've been at the same festivals now twice over. I've been very fortunate to be able to travel with them, to meet people. It's nothing like experiencing firsthand the reaction that people have to your work. Different even from sitting in an audience, to travel to festivals, to have people acknowledge the work, not just my work. There's so many people who go into making these films, the crews, the cast, all of them operating at such a high level. To be able to take their regard, the regard of other people in their behalf, on their behalf, is really an amazing thing. So to be able to do that for the last few months, I have to say personally, the thing I'm looking forward to doing next is nothing.
Have some rest.
Just relaxing. It's hard to think about what next. I mean, these two films were so special. Again, not for my involvement. You think of what Solomon Northup, what he did, how he survived to be able to tell his story. To read that document, his memoir is so amazing. To be able to, in any way, shape, or form, tell the story of Jimi Hendrix and the relationships that he had that was so key in his life. These are really special stories. I don't know when, honestly, I don't know when I will be able to find stories like this again. I don't know when I will be able to find a cast or crew like the cast and crew that I had on both of these films. So honestly, to be that fortunate, it's not like I'm going to rush and try to find something else, because I don't know when I will be this fortunate again. Sometimes it's okay to just take a moment, rest, find that right thing, find those right people, and when I find them or when they find me, I know I'll have another story that's equal to these two stories.
Well, it's definitely apparent that, you know, you thrive with passion, which I think is very important in today's society. And also, I mean, on behalf of the film festival, I once again want to thank you and the crew for really bringing to life two films that have important messages as well to the world today.
Thank you very, very much.
So thank you very much and enjoy your stay.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.